of Josh Pate's college football show. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you can't catch him live, you can catch the podcast. I tried to have a little bit of a ploy in here. I tried to make him sit in the seat that Ramon Foster and Ron Slay sit in, which is at a lower level. And also, I don't think the hydraulics are cooperating anymore, just to kind of, make sure that that there was an established pecking order so that he was looking up at Lucas and I, and yet he has since undermined me by switching chairs. I was not prepared for that.
Yeah, I fought through what I would call moderate to heavy gulch traffic to get here 3 minutes early. I don't know what's going to happen. I just assume something bad is going to happen. I've been attacked by my own city. Pavia is after me. Yeah. You're after me. Lucas, one of the only friends I have in this entire area code.
Well, it's just because he has a shrine built to you in his closet at home.
It's true. People live however they want to live. I'm not trying to legislate what you do in your own house.
All right. So the beef with Pavia, Diego Pavia, the Vanderbilt quarterback, it started on Lawan and Compton's podcast, Bussin' with the Boys. That episode, I think, was their most recent episode, if I'm not mistaken. You since have taken the beef to your platform, where he was not aware of who the future college football commissioner Josh Pate was, even though Josh Pate is one of the foremost figures in the college football world on our side of things in the media. How have you escalated said beef with a quarterback who I'm pretty sure is like 3 inches shorter than you?
Well, you both know me very well. Okay, and you both have told me privately I'm one of the most humble people you've ever met.
It's never in my life. In fact, I have said many things to the opposite.
There's no proof of this. So, having established that, I think I've built up the equity, I've built up the goodwill in the community to say, people know me, okay? People know me. And so the fact that I went to a Vanderbilt game last year, I stood on the sideline. I went to, UNLV Boise the night before, flew all the way back just to support my Commodores at the time, my Commodores.
Famously.
And we do an entire global tour, not just nationwide, global tour. You sit down with a hoomst of the coaches in the country. You talk with all the biggest players, and then to come home, go on your honeymoon, get back, prop your feet up. You hope to watch Bussin' with the Boys and get some good, wholesome content. And you watch the quarterback of the Vanderbilt Commodores offer the following quote. Well, who's Josh Pate? Mm-hmm. It makes you wonder what you're fighting for. It really makes you wonder what you're fighting for. It makes you wonder what kind of program is Clark Lee running. Like the audacity to have your players blocking the outside noise. What kind of program is that?
It's very questionable. Questionable at best, especially when you can probably hear the external noise just down the hall. Yeah. Just a couple blocks away. You could probably hear him.
Pavia making all sorts of enemies last week.
Well, Pavia starting fights with the University of Tennessee. Let's start there, because before I hit you over the head with all the administrative stuff that I know that you like to avoid at this time of year, and do your damnedest to anyway. That's not what we're going to do entirely today, but there is some actual football stuff to discuss. Pavia getting on that podcast, very much telling Lawan that he didn't want to offer anybody locker room material, and then very quickly turning around and saying Vanderbilt is going to run Tennessee for the future, not just his 1 year of collegiate eligibility left.
That we know of.
Yeah, for sure. Come on. What do you make of him as a figure and that program as a whole? Because it is interesting, and if he was going to take a run at Tennessee, it would be this year when there are some significant uncertainties just east of us.
Yeah, he's got a lot of Manziel about him. Just speaking real now, I'm going to say
I've seen Timu Manziel a lot on Twitter.
I'm going to say he's one of one, not in terms of a raw talent, but I don't know, the way that you want your leader to be wired from the neck up. You want a little bit of psychopath. You want a lot of alpha. I was talking to Cole Kublik, who did a couple of Vandy games last year, and he told me a story, which I'm probably not supposed to tell on there, but that's okay. It's okay.
We're here now.
Yeah.
No, certainly Cole Kublik does not listen to this radio.
Nobody's listening.
He said they were in like a production meeting, and it may have been before. It was the Texas game. It was going into the Texas game because Kublik's crew was covering that game. Ironically, the game that I flew red eye to get back to. And he said they presented all of these what ifs and like all of these pros and cons. Here's where Texas has the edge here. Here's where Texas has the edge there. He said Pavia just sat there with a smirk the whole time. And then after they just run off the litany of edges Texas has, they said, well, what do you think about that? And Diego Pavia, not trying to pop any crowd, not trying to get a smile, he just said, yeah, but we got me. we got me. So why should I be worried?
Hell yeah.
So it's not an act. It's really the way he feels. And it's the way you hope your competitor feels. Here's the difference. He's also backed it up, and he's not talking after he walked out of the door because he's going to play Tennessee this year. So my philosophy has always been, I'm all for you talking as much as you want to, as long as the person or the team you're talking about is going to line up across from you. Like if you and I are talking about fighting each other, but we're not going to get in the octagon, well, that's dumb. That's just a waste of oxygen. Now, here's the Pavia tax, if you will. You're seeing some other guys try this. I don't know if you've paid attention. Just this morning,
Yes.
Thomas Castellanos.
Lucas just sent it to me.
Who's
Florida State quarterback.
He's been the quarterback at FSU for about 30 minutes. Has not played a down there yet. Has gone off about everything from Alabama to who they opened with to the entire ACC. And so you're looking at it.
BC transfer.
Yeah.
Who helped them beat Florida State at their place last year. The quote was, quote, they don't have Nick Saban to save them. I just don't see them stopping me, talking to Pete Nakos.
And I'm going to be honest, his own team may do a pretty good job of stopping him. But I can also confidently tell you Alabama may have a little bit to do with that. But anyway, so I've not only noticed Diego Pavia, I've noticed that there's a little ripple effect off of him, just like there was to a larger degree when Manziel did what he did. Because you remember, this was a little more than a decade ago. How many guys got a little more mouthy? How many guys got a little more loose?
Yeah.
How many old white guys started using the word swagger that had never used it in their lexicon before? So Manziel had a bigger impact because he played for a bigger program. And but he did the same thing. He goes and beats Alabama. He's on the national stage, but he goes on to win the Heisman. Like, he's a high-level draft pick. I don't know what the future holds for Pavia, but I'm not mad at it, but only because he knows he's got the opportunity to back it up this fall.
Tennessee, then, as we look around the SEC and kind of the state of college football, they're in flux for sure. And we were just going back and forth. I don't know if you caught this while you were stuck in your moderate to heavy Gulch traffic. But Joel Klatt put out a list of people that he considers to be have some level of pressure associated with them in the 2025 season. He had Josh Heupel in the same standing as Mike Norvell and Billy Napier.
Yeah. We like you, but
I thought
was
was interesting. What's the category that he has Luke Fickell in?
Luke Fickell and Kalen DeBoer are in the category of trying to be patient.
That felt to me more appropriate pressure or a level of heat that Josh Heupel may be facing in a year where they've just undergone, a really unprecedented situation with their quarterback, or at least the first public one, right? How do you feel about where Tennessee is at right now and the idea of windows in the current state of college football? Because that, to me, seems more fraught than it ever has been.
Yeah, I mean, all due respect to Joel, there is no world where Heupel and Norvell exist on the same plane right now. So you can call that whatever you want to. I think we talked about this like a month ago on the show. Someone had asked me some version of this, is there going to be heat on Josh Heupel if they go 8-4? And look, so there's an entire reset that all of college football has to do, not just Tennessee. Understanding what 9-3 means or 8-4 means today versus just 3 years ago, just 4 years ago. Secondly, if you're Tennessee and you're above the age of like 15, you also have to have the wherewithal about yourself to understand you were in the wilderness for a long time, and that guy brought you back. And so he did what a lot of others like sold you on the promise of, but never delivered on. And now you've beaten Alabama a couple of times. You're in the playoff last year. You could do the whole, but they got blown out. They were in it. They were in the playoff. And so there's the whole what if they only go 8-4? Well, then they go 8-4 and Heupel's still a really good head coach. That's the answer to the what if. Because I did this on the show last night. Someone asked this about DeBoer. Someone said, man, what if Alabama goes 9-3, same record as last year? What if they barely miss the playoff just like last year? Well, the reality is they will have had a pretty good year and they barely missed the playoff. The other reality is people in Tuscaloosa won't be interested in what reality is and logic is, and they'll panic. They'll freak out. And here's the thing you can never know. It's just a mind game you can play. In a parallel universe, Saban doesn't retire. Saban's still there in a parallel universe. How do you know Saban's not going 9-3? Just because he hadn't? He left in part because the entire ground had shifted under him. The last year he was there, you remember that he got eliminated in overtime of a semifinal game, so he went out on top. I'm not disputing that. I'm just trying to get people to understand they beat A&M by 6 that year. They beat Arkansas by 3 that year. They needed 4th and 31 to beat Auburn. They were penalty-ridden as a team. They were very undisciplined as a team. So there was a lot of looseness about that Alabama team last year under Saban. So it's not the craziest concept in the world that in a new era where you replace the greatest of all time, you hang a couple of 9-win seasons out of the gate. But yet that's not the way it would be framed. It would be framed as this guy's a fraud. Did Greg Burns swing and miss at replacing Nick Saban?
Yeah, they're scrutinizing what kind of attire he wears on the sidelines. They're looking at all of it, right?
Yeah, it was funny because then after they had a little hiccup against Vandy, well, then later in the season, they go down to LSU and skull drag LSU, and he wore the same outfit. No one talked about his attire. So whether it's Heupel, my point is whether it's Heupel or whether it could be Kirby this year. What if Kirby goes 9-3 or 8-4 and misses the playoff? I just don't think people understand how fine the threading is in some of these seasons now, and the difference between 11-1 and 8-4 is way more compacted than it was back when there was really big separation in a lot of these rosters.
I'm loving watching this adjustment, by the way, from Alabama fans that we all knew was coming, to watch in real time them adjust to this reality of sometimes you're going to win 9 games, and that's okay, but it's not okay, and it's awesome to watch.
That's just the vindictive part of you that's been tortured to the point where you had to take vacation when Tennessee plays Alabama just so you wouldn't have to witness that. Josh Pate's college football show, Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, live at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. local. You can catch the podcast after the fact if you can't watch it live.
And while we're talking about this pressure index, one of the categories on here from Joel Klatt is just it's time. And he's got 2 faces on there, James Franklin of Penn State, Brian Kelly of LSU. Is it me, or do those two belong in a different plane as well? Because there's a reality where James Franklin can fall short in the same way Brian Kelly could fall short at LSU, yet the discourse could be totally different between the two. Am I off in thinking that? I have such a hard time seeing the pressure ratcheted up on James Franklin for not getting over a championship hump, even if that is the discourse around him. But I'm talking about the pressure of losing his job over it.
Yeah.
Whereas Brian Kelly's going into a place that he's in right now at LSU.
Yeah, I think the better comparison for the it's time with James Franklin would be maybe Sark at Texas.
Yeah.
No job security pressure to speak of. Like I think of pressure in 2 different categories. You've got the job security pressure, aka win or you're fired. And then there's the competitive pressure of, hey, there's high expectation here. You're in no threat of losing your job. However, you're James Franklin. The 2 criticisms of him is he can't beat the big teams, Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, maybe now, and they haven't won the Big Ten in a long time. Like they haven't competed for a national title. So actually, we talked about this last night, too, with Franklin. You would think if you were just kind of a passerby, you're just a drive-by college football fan, you would think, oh, man, all the haters are gone now, right? Because he went to the semifinals of the playoff last year. Okay. But if you do a healthy inventory on that, they still lost to Ohio State at home with a 10-0 lead. They still lost to Ohio State. They get another shot against Oregon in the Big Ten title game. They get beat there. Yes, they go to the playoff just because they had a record that was good enough. Who did they play? They played Boise and SMU. Like the hater would say, of course they beat them, but then they were put on equal footing against an equal competitor, and Notre Dame beat them. So they still didn't accomplish anything that we allege that they can't accomplish. So I do think James Franklin's number 1 on the competitive pressure index this year, because not only does he return a quarterback, couple of 1,000-yard tailbacks, 4 offensive linemen. They did really good finally at receiver in the portal. They went and got Ohio State's defensive coordinator. They should have a top 10, 15 unit on that side of the ball. Oregon has to come to them, white out, first 5 weeks of the year. And there's inconsistency and lack of returning production everywhere else in the Big Ten. So, like, it's Penn State's to lose. So I would agree with that. Brian Kelly at LSU, I agree with you now. I feel a little bit different about that one because there's a really different dynamic around LSU. Like, the closer you get to the program, the more you wonder, all right, well, Brian Kelly, like, he's the head coach, but then also you hear these rumblings of edicts that you got to bring these kinds of guys back in and you got to hire this guy for the general manager. Good hires, by the way. Everything I'm talking about, good hires. But you kind of, I don't know, there's a little different foundation at LSU, if you will. And I also think that James Franklin has endeared himself a lot more to his constituency than Brian Kelly has per se. And
Great use of the word constituency.
Yes. So I think different vibes entirely there.
Why did I just think of what's the candidate in the movie Oh Brother Where Art Thou, where he's talking about his constituency?
Oh, yeah, the bald guy?
Homer something. That's Brian Kelly with the fake accent while wandering around LSU. Tough.
Wandering. Just wandering.
That's kind of what I feel about him right now. It's just weird to watch, especially knowing what I knew about him at Notre Dame and understanding how the degree of difficulty was going to change at LSU.
Well, you're a Notre Dame fan, though, so you have a different perspective.
Famously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but still, like, his whole thing was, well, I can't recruit at the same level because of the academic standards. Okay, well, we're going to take you to LSU and you're going to have as many opportunities to recruit whoever the hell you want. And it's not necessarily, I mean, you tell me, it's not necessarily about the talent profile at LSU, is it? Because he seems to have players all over the place. It's just they get into these situations where when something can go wrong, it does go wrong. He feels like the Occam's razor of college football to me.
Yeah, but the talent, I don't want to skip over what you said. So the talent profile of this year's team, yeah, it's good, but that's only because Austin Thomas, the general manager down there, had to really get in some faces. And Austin's not an overly confrontational guy, by the way. This is the thankless job that is the general manager role in college football. They were in trouble. Point blank, this year's team would have been in trouble had he not snatched up a few shirt sleeves of their big money people, said, look, I don't really care if you do or don't love the current regime or the current AD or the current head coach. We are going to be an 8 or 7 win team this year if we don't fill these holes. And so they opened the wallet and they went and they completely saved themselves in the portal to where now they look like an SEC championship contender. That's not because they killed it in recruiting. That's because they killed it in the portal. So the recruiting apparatus down there, I'm not saying it's poor. I'm not saying it's a poverty program, but there's still a level off. But it's because maybe the NIL hadn't been in gear to the degree it needed to be. And that's not because LSU is a poverty booster base. It's because there may be some bigger wallets down there that look, and I don't like this about the program right now. I don't like that about the program, which is an age-old problem in college football. It's just exacerbated because now all this stuff is legal. So it's a lot more well-known when someone is or isn't spending to the degree they need to.
You have better access than most people do when it comes to college football media, because famously, like you said at the start of this segment, people know who I like to think that people know who I am.
Humbly, respectfully.
Yes. I had somebody ask me randomly about your wedding, and I said I assumed that he just officiated his own wedding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The degree of difficulty would be tough, but I feel like you are somebody that I feel like I could safely put into a bucket like that. Point being, your level of access, you know a lot more things happening in the, I don't want to call it the underbelly of college football than the public.
Behind the curtain.
Than will ever make it to the public. Behind the curtain is fair.
Underbelly sounds nefarious.
Well, underbelly is also how I feel about the state of collegiate athletics just generally. But programs that we're not talking about, somebody who's not getting the public amount of love that you think that they are on the precipice of deserving, somebody who's on that breakthrough type of moment, or at least has a seat at the table that's not being discussed heavily enough. A lot of people like to talk about who's this year's Indiana, and I have no idea if you could ever, you could recreate that in a vacuum, but it'd be very, very difficult, I feel like. Who's the program that's not being discussed enough, though, right now?
But before you answer that, do you have another segment in you?
Yes.
Then why don't you tell us next?
That's your cue.
It's just sizzling. What if I said no? Say, well, we'll hit you next time. Text it.